Suburban. So Nicholas Hartwig is back today from Zambia. He spent 7 weeks there, and he's going to a mandate mission school during this year, and so we're supporting him. And then also Haley Admire is here today. Some of you remember the Admires, and Haley has a heart for missions, and she was one of our interns that did a ministry internship here at the church as well. Would you two stand up? Where are you? Come on. There's Haley and Nick. There you go. Thank you. So I have 2 microphones, so I get to talk twice as long today. Oh, no, that's not how it works. Actually, I'll be talking a little bit less because we're in for a special treat today. We're going to interview a couple of people today, a couple of women in ministry in our community, and so I'm really excited to have them share with you. And I'm working on this microphone behind me to make sure it doesn't roll off. There we go. And so to start off with that, though, what I think of is in your bulletin, there are some notes there for you to take notes and jot down things like we put in our bulletin each week. And in there it talks about how we are continuing our Relatable series, and we're talking about relating to the world that needs Jesus. So relating to others in the world who need Jesus. And so that's what we're focusing on today. And so I want to highlight that for you. And I think about one of our neighbors who lived near us when we lived in Albany. And her name was Janet. And what Janet did was she grew up in church, a Seventh-day Adventist church. And then as she got older, she thought, well, I don't really need this stuff. And so she went on with life. And then she kind of ditched that. And then she found herself in a Jehovah's Witness church. And so she was doing that for a while. And then she thought, boy, that doesn't fit. And so she ditched that as well. And then she moved into the house next to us, or I think we actually moved into the house next to her. But then as we got to know Janet, we just would help out with things and care about her and pray for her and her daughter to come to know Jesus. And I've told this story before, but to make it really short, what happened was we talked to her about Jesus, and she invited Jesus into her heart. And so it was through that friendship and that relationship. And what we're talking about today is about relating to others in a world who needs Jesus, right? Can you tell the world still needs Jesus? Yes. And so that's what we want to talk about today, and we have some specific examples of that. You know, Christ's love compels us. In 2 Corinthians 5:14, it says, the love of Christ compels us. And that's our call from God, that there's people that we care about, that we wish that they would go to heaven too, right? And so God's love kind of compels us to pray for them and to reach out to them and to look for a way to say something to them that would help draw them closer to Jesus. In Romans chapter 10, you'll find that also in your relatable notes in the devotions for this week as well. But in Romans chapter 10, it says this, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Everyone who calls on Jesus will come to know him in a personal way. And he goes on to say, Paul the Apostle writes, how then can they who call on the one who they have not believed in? How can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? How can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? How beautiful it is written, beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. How can people hear about Jesus if somebody doesn't say something? How can people hear about Jesus if somebody doesn't go to where they are and share something? And so that's what we want to talk about today. When we've talked about relatable, we've talked about our relationship with God. We've talked about our relationship with ourselves. We've talked about our relationship with others. And so today we want to talk about our relationship to the world and to people who need Jesus. Several years ago, I heard an awesome story from Paul Eshelman, who was one of the leaders of Campus Crusade for Christ. It's called Cru now. And with Cru, what they did is they showed the movie, the Jesus film. I remember seeing that many years ago in English. It's been translated into hundreds of languages now, or perhaps thousands of languages, and it's just strictly taken right from the Gospel of Luke. And so the story goes that there was an 82-year-old Buddhist priest on an island who got to see the Jesus film as these teams went out all across the globe, and he invited Jesus into his heart. He became a Christian. And Paul Eshelman thought, oh, this is too good to pass up. I've got to meet this man. So he flew to the island, and he met with the Buddhist priest, and he said, why did you wait so long? Why did you wait so long to become a Christian? And the priest said, no one ever told me about Jesus before. That's what all this is about. That's why we come to church every week. That's why we read our Bibles. Sorry, it just gets me. Excuse me. The world needs Jesus. And so we want to talk about that today, and I'm excited to have some women in ministry. I'm trying to gain control here myself. But there's some women in ministry in our community, even from our church, that have been involved in helping people come to know who Jesus is. And so first I'm going to ask Aslan Noakes to come up and share with us, whether it's on an island far away or whether it's across the street, people need to know Jesus. And so Aslan has grown up here at Suburban. I think she was probably born nearby and had her first Sunday at Suburban, probably, like the first Sunday of her life or something. And so would you tell us a little bit about how you've been going back and forth to Haiti again and again and again and over these past few years, and give us some background on how Suburban got started in ministry to Haiti. So as we talk about reaching our world, let's hear a little bit about how you've been involved with that and how our church has been involved with that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, Harriet Hughes was giving the communion meditation a little bit earlier, and she's the first person that I ever heard about Haiti from. I didn't even know this place existed until she started sharing about it, because her and Doyle have been very actively involved in Haiti for decades. So I remember hearing about it from them. And actually, Suburban has a sister church in Foncheval, Haiti, through Haitian Christian Mission. It's one of their church plans. And Pastor Eddie had come and visited our church when our church was still over there. Anybody else have been going to this church so long that they went over there, that building? I think we sat behind the third arch on the left. And I remember Pastor Eddie had visited our church. And in Haiti, people dress to the nines when they go to church. Like, look at me, I'm in jeans right now. I remember him standing there in his white suit and his white shiny shoes, and I thought, he must think we don't love God. But it's just interesting how, speaking of the Relatable series, how different cultures kind of relate to even church culture differently, and it's just cool to be able to learn about those different cultures. So after the earthquake happened in Haiti in January 2010, I was just wrapping up nursing school, and I just thought, boy, like I know somebody, or I met somebody, that is in Haiti that our church is connected with, and maybe I have a skill set that I could give back. So I started going down to Haiti that very first time, about 6 weeks after the earthquake in March of 2010. And it's funny because when I went down there, I didn't speak any Creole besides bonjour, bonsoir. Now I can speak Haitian Creole, which is great. But I didn't understand, what people were saying. And I remember when people were getting really animated, they talk with their hands a lot, and I was like, are they upset? Did we do something wrong? And they're like, oh, no. They're just, discussing how to get to the next place we're going. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, this is like my mom's side of the family. Anyone know Lori Rentz, my mother? Yeah. You hear her before you see her? Yeah. Sorry, Mom. So it's one of those things where once I understood that, I felt so much more connected. I could relate so much more with that culture because it felt so familiar to me. So really cool to be able to connect there and get involved. And I just kept being drawn back to Haiti.
That's fantastic. So you've done several trips, and you've learned to speak some of the language and get along well with them. And in all these trips, it harkens back to our involvement as a church. You got the vision for that from our church being involved in ministry in Haiti. And I believe you have a video that kind of gives us the background of how that ministry in Haiti began. And so would this be a good time to show that?
Yeah, that'd be great. So this is put on by Ozark Christian College. So our old pastor, Steve, he's old, went to seminary school at Ozark Christian College with Pastor Etienne Prophet, who started Haitian Christian Mission. And they've planted so many different church plants throughout Haiti, and one is in Foncheval, where Pastor Eddie is, and that's the church plant that our church supports. So it's really cool seeing how one life was invested in by someone sponsoring him to go to university at Ozark Christian College, and to see how that has played out. And so you guys can learn a little bit more about what's happening with Haitian Christian Mission.
Yep, let's play that.
I was born in Haiti in very dire poverty. Because of lack of food, I starved so much that my brain could not sustain the rigor of learning. and I would faint during class. Even in the middle of my suffering, I wanted to do something as I saw other children suffering. In my desire to serve, I met a missionary who was traveling in Haiti, and he got me introduced to Ozark Christian College. The teaching of Ozark sharpened my vision in many ways. When I got to Ozark, I felt that what I was looking for is what I found. The teachers of Ozark inspired me in the way of life, to study the word, to get involved, and to change other people's lives. Ozark made study affordable to me. When I graduated, I had everything paid for, and I was able to come back to my country. Ozark Christian College transformed my life. In 1974, my wife and I started our first church. And then we set up Haitian Christian Mission, whose ministry has been spread all over Haiti. We noticed that there was an average of 9 children dying per week, and so we started a feeding program. We moved to where they are and feed them. And ever since we did, we don't notice any child dying from malnutrition. Before this medical facility was built, there was practically nothing here. And now we have a walking clinic, and in OBGYN, we have thousands and thousands of people here with surgeries. And that is a relief for a lot of people who otherwise would not have any medical help. Before we moved here, there was practically no education. And now we have 53 schools that we have started, totaling about 14,000 children from kindergarten through high school and going to college level. And now we start this language school where they learn French, English, Spanish, in order to open windows of opportunity to the rest of the world. Of course, we have a church, but it is one of the 57 churches that we have built, and they include over 12,000 members. Really, it is not my word. It is about Christ, to bring people back to Him, to honor Him, and so people can enjoy the face of God. The life that I lived at Ozark has been instrumental for me to do this ministry here in Haiti. Every time I looked at what God is doing through the ministry of HCM, I see Ozark. I think Ozark is a very important school to train people, to train the mind, to change people's worldview into a better worldview, to serve the world and change the world so we can have a better place to live.
So did you hear that? 12,000 members in 57 churches, and 25 years ago there was nothing. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? And so we are a part of one of those early churches and have been supporting them for these 25 years. And so Aslan's been able to return to Haiti, and we've had other mission trips, groups from our church go. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about, as you're traveling back and forth, what are you up to now? It's like the next generation. So we've help them start their church and help them build their school, and we help support their children so they can eat and learn, and what are you doing?
So throughout the years, I developed an organization called Empower Haiti Together, and we really see ourselves as a support ministry. And I came down to Haiti thinking my best skill set was nursing, but really my best skill set in Haiti is my advocacy, networking, people, connecting skills, and to be able to use that to be a liaison. I'm on our missions committee here, to be able to say, okay, here's the concern they're bringing, but here's some of the background information, or culturally, this is why this is relevant, to be able to advocate for some of the needs that we're seeing in that community. Additionally, our organization, as a support ministry, we've been able to kind of wrap around and more holistically address some of those community concerns that they're having there Foncheval and one other partner community that Empower Haiti Together has, a lack of access to primary health care is a big problem. And so we are helping to train some community health workers, 9 of which are in Foncheval, our sister church. In December, we had 2 different student groups come down, mostly Oregon State University students that got involved and helped us train in CPR, Heimlich maneuver, and rescue breathing as an initial training for them. We're returning over spring break with more students, and we're going to continue that. We are going to teach how to take a blood pressure. The students are also going to be learning alongside them and get to practice even with the language barrier. That'll be really cool. We got some donations of blood pressure cuffs and stethoscopes and things like that. So after we're able to practice with each other, we're going to go together and help do that initial screening in those communities, and then follow up and see how we can provide some wraparound care to some of those high-risk, high blood pressure people. So cool how we can just kind of continue and provide that support work in those communities.
So that's great. So there's a way that you're using medicine as a way to show people you care about them and bring Jesus into the equation, right? There's some other things you do too. What about all the stuff that you sell? You're not just selling it for you, are you?
We also bring home some Haitian-made products, some coffee, coconut soap, all kind of different things that we bring home that supports jobs in Haiti, and then we can help fund our community projects through that as well. We now have a guest house in Port-au-Prince for our student groups that are coming down very often that we're renting, and it's been able to be used for a space for Haitian Christian Mission to have a pastor's leadership breakfast there for about 30 pastors. Pastor Etienne and Pastor Eddie were both part of that as well, which is cool. It's just a neat space that can be used for so many different things, and we're hoping that we can maybe host in August. We're looking into some dates now that we potentially could have a Suburban group going in August. So keep that in mind if you're interested. Please speak with me afterwards. I'll be right out here.
Yeah, so keep praying about that. And then also, in addition to those things, you're also, as you said, you're updating us on what's happening in Haiti, so you find out about whether the well got drilled or whether it was successful, or maybe their water catchment system, maybe we could bring some money to that to help it be repaired, and so they don't have to walk as many miles to get water, and then the church becomes a hub of ministry as people come there. And so lots of great ways that you're helping out. So what we see is that she's prayed about this for years, and then she's been going over there and caring for them, and that's a way to share the gospel, and it's exciting to see. So thank you, Aslan. Appreciate that. Yeah. We're in our pastors and elders and wives retreat, spouses retreat this last week, and the elders are still out there, but the rest of us had to come back and do church, so you guys would have something to do today. And so as we're here, I remember one of the conversations I had with one of the elders' wives, and she talked about how she had a passion for helping people on the street who are addicted to drugs, and helping them by bringing food to them, or jackets, or blankets, or hats, and caring for them and hugging them, and that's her passion. And I said, well, that's awesome. Well, so what you're doing is you're praying for them, and then you're showing them that you care, and you're caring for them, and that's a way for you to begin to share Christ with them and invite them to church and tell them about how God's the one that encourages you to do this, right? And I said, it's just like prayer, care, share that we've been talking about at church for the last couple of years. And she said, oh, I never thought of it like that. And I thought, but that's the point. That's what we're doing. And that's what she's doing. And so we want to naturally just fit into that of what's happening. So I have another way to introduce you to some great ways that we care in a community, and we as a church partner with Love Inc. and Love in the Name of Christ. And I'm going to ask Corey Latimer, the director, to come up and share a little bit about the ministry that she directs. It's a ministry that we've supported for many years. What did you say, 16 years? We've been supporting Love Inc. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how that got started?
Great. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here this morning. It's such a privilege to come out and talk to you about Love in the Name of Christ and how it got started. I've been in the position there in executive directorship for about 4 years now, and the time's just gone by so quickly. But that's what happens when you're having fun, I guess, and when you're working in your passion. So Love in the Name of Christ got started 16 years ago out of a collective effort of pastors who have been praying for our community for over 30 plus years together. Pastor Steve was actually one of those pastors who was in that prayer group and just wanted a way to collectively minister and reach out to our city together as a unified body of Christ. And so We are a shared ministry of 50 churches from across Benton County. And so it's neat so when I go out into community conversations or out in the city and I'm talking, I get to say, oh, we're a shared ministry of 50 church partners. And they're like, really? And you all work together? And you all love each other? And I'm like, yes. And it just reminds me of the verse in John 13:35 when they talk about, Jesus says, they will know you are my disciples by your love for one another. And so it's just a huge testimony to our city to be able to have this ministry working together with all the churches and serving our city and all these various needs. We work through gap ministries. That's how we primarily got started. We essentially recognize gaps in the community of need that's not being fulfilled by another service agency and essentially are able to rally the churches around those areas. So we have 20 different gap ministries that have been started because of recognizing needs, ranging from durable medical equipment to hygiene baskets, emergency food boxes, our transitional parking program in partnership with the city. So it's just been neat to kind of just be that outward testimony of the church coming together and serving our city, and the city coming to us and saying, wow, the church is such a valuable resource. Is this something that you might be able to do? And we're able to say, yes. And so it's exciting to see how God has grown the ministry over the last 16 years, and there's some really exciting things ahead. So.
Well, I think it'd be great to give us a couple word pictures through some of the stories.
Yeah.
I think about the transitional parking ministry. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And our church has been involved in that ministry as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the transitional parking program started about a year ago. The chief of police actually came to us and said, hey, there's this huge issue that we're seeing with individuals camping in their cars throughout the city, and that's actually illegal as well as just unsafe. And a lot of these individuals are actually families. And in the Corvallis School District alone, it was identified that 290 kids are identified as homeless, and a lot of times living in their cars. And so essentially the transitional parking program was started to be able to provide a safe space for families and individuals to come and park their car temporarily on a church parking lot and be able to have a church family advocate just loving on them and being able to invite them into community, because the one major issue that prevents individuals from moving forward in their life is isolation. And I know that the enemy desires to keep us isolated and broken from relationships so that we can't move forward, we can't see hope. And so essentially we've had several families go through the transitional parking program and now are in stable housing, are able to really look forward and provide for their families for the first time in their life. So thank you for your involvement in that.
Yeah, Corey, in fact, we had a couple of different families that were in our parking lot or over there in our north campus, as we call it, by the shed, by the garage. And we're in a trailer, and one of those families started coming to church with us as well. And now they're set up in another community, and they have a home, and they have a church family, and it worked.
Yeah, it's really neat because within these gap ministries, how we operate is out of a call center. So essentially, last year we received over 20,000 calls of individuals in need. And then we're able to take those needs and then connect them to the various resources in our community, especially the gap ministries, because the idea behind it is that if we can provide them with something tangible like a hygiene basket and just show them tangible Jesus in that way through love, it opens the doorway to relationship and thus transformation. And so that's kind of how we operate, is out of the call center, being able to connect essentially the churches to the needs. And it's exciting because we get to see needs being met in miraculous ways on a daily basis. For instance, we had just a phone call the other week of an individual who was homebound and could not get out of bed, and they were asking for a really specialized wheelchair. And we didn't have that in our current medical equipment shed, but we said, let's pray about that and see how God provides. And so the very next phone call, not joking, a wife of a gentleman who had passed away called and said, hi, so I just wanted to let you know that we have wheelchair, but it's a very specialized wheelchair, so I don't know if you'll need it right away. And the volunteer starts crying and saying, "Oh, goodness, Lord, you provide in amazing ways." And so the volunteer was able to tell the donor, "Hey, we have somebody who had just called and is in need of that wheelchair." And then that volunteer was able to call the neighbor in need and say, "God provided, we have that wheelchair for you." And so it's just a huge testimony of seeing God's hand work in amazing ways to, because he cares so deeply for his children. So that's
fantastic. You told me the other day that you were at a meeting with, I don't know, like 50-some helping agencies or something like that. I don't know if it was 40 or 60. Yeah. I don't remember how many. But you were the only Christian ministry that was represented. Mm-hmm. But you were able to say, and I represent 50 churches that work together, and they were all blown away.
Yeah.
We're one of those churches.
Yeah. One of the founding churches. And it's, again, a huge testimony to the community. And it's exciting because we are invited to the table. We're asked, can you come and be a part of this meeting? Because we're talking about this huge need. And we believe that you have a valuable place and resource in contributing to that. And so it's exciting.
Excellent. And so another way that you can be a part of this is probably through a special event that's going to be hosted soon. Do you know anything about that?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
Oh, right here. Yeah. Yes. So it's an event called City Serve. So it's essentially on one day, all the churches come together and work on and serve in our community and show love by working on various projects that we will have set up, from serving at schools to the fire department to the to the police department to the parks, as well as individual neighbors in need that need yard work done and things like that. So we're just encouraging all of the churches to just come out and be that visual representation on that one day. Essentially, City Serve is the one day, but we do this on a daily basis through Love Inc., so it's a privilege to do that as well.
And so there's going to be opportunity for you to sign up and get involved on that one-day City Serve.
Yes.
And that is where we at Suburban and many other churches are going to be expressing love to our community. And in fact, you have a way people can sign up, don't you?
Yes, I do. And it's very techy as well. So if you have a phone, you can actually text to volunteer. And essentially, it just gives you a link to our volunteer application or our talent tithe. Because if you know how to knit, if you know how to encourage people, if you know how to really just drive and be able to take somebody to a medical appointment, there are so many ways to get involved and be the hands and feet of Jesus here locally in our communities. And we have fabulous kingdom partners as well with, Options and Friends of the Family and Southside Youth Outreach, so many. And our passion is to get the church mobilized and you all connected to wherever God is calling you to. So I would encourage you to text that number, or there's paper applications out there, as well as a list of all the different GAP ministries. And also you have two wonderful people within your congregation, Sarah Melanook and Kathy Cudo. They are your Love Inc. church ministry connectors, and so those would be wonderful resources for you to get connected as well.
Well, thank you, Corey, so much for sharing with us about Love in the Name of Christ and how we're a part of that ministry and how through that ministry we can love others in our community by relating to them, meeting their needs, and helping people come to know Jesus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
So in your bulletin, I want to draw your attention to a couple of things that are in your bulletin. And first of all, there was your sermon notes. And on the back of those sermon notes, I want to let you know that we talked about how to reach your world, and we talked about reaching our community. And what about reaching at church? We have guests every Sunday that come to church, and they may not know anyone here. And so we want to invite you to take a look at that back page there and look for ways that you can be involved in reaching out to folks. And in fact, I've seen this happen just not too long ago. We had a fella come here to church to check things out and see if this was going to be the place that he wanted to be. And somebody did the first step. They initiated contact. And so they went over and talked to him. And they found out that he was a retired policeman, and they found out that he was a veteran as well. And so then they found another veteran to come over and talk with him. So they introduced him to somebody else, started informing him about the church, and then brought over the former chief of police who's retired and attends our church as well, and got them connected. And man, this guy had friends just instantly, you know. And then as time went by, we've been praying for him and for the surgery that he had, and he's been introduced to others. He's been invited to men's groups and other things, and so he and his family, and by family I mean his daughter and son-in-law and grandkids, they're coming to church here because you guys followed the instructions, because somebody cared enough to reach out and help somebody. And so I want to encourage you to take a look at that and see how you can reach out and help someone in our church feel more like this is their church family. And then also another way to relate is to take that 5 to 10 challenge at the bottom. And the idea is take the first 5 minutes before church or 5 minutes after church and reach out to anybody who's within about 10 feet of you that you haven't met yet. And we just encourage you to connect with them and use these ideas. And then also you have your devotional page that you can take with you this week. And there's some scriptures and ideas that we've talked about just to further you in your devotions. And there's even, as you look at how you can share Christ with people, there's something about that on Friday as well. So that concludes our time today. So let me offer a prayer for us as we decide to step out and relate to our world that needs Jesus. Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you so much for the opportunity to gather together, to hear from your word, to hear from your servants, and to realize that we all could play a role, whether it's to pray or to give or to go or to serve. Lord, we ask that you would help each one of us to step up and be able to relate to others who need you. So, Father, we thank you for this day and all that you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, as you go today, we also have a next step meeting over there, which is basically for newcomers to get acquainted with some folks that come to our church. And so if you're new, we'd love to meet you over there at the